Hi everyone, it's really great to be talking to you today. So as described, we're going to be going through the process of how to create an audience development plan. So I'm going to start off just with a little bit of an introduction to the audience agency. We've got quite a lot of people here today, and I'm where some of you may be really familiar with what we do, and perhaps some others of you are really new to the organisation. So I'm going to just start with a bit of an introduction to us and what we do. So we are a not-for-profit charity. We operate across the UK and internationally. And underpinning much of what we do is a collaborative principle around data sharing and knowledge. And that manifests itself in particular within Audience Finder. Many of you might use that, the national data and development tool for the sector. Just for anybody not familiar, the way that works is that organisations input ticketing and survey data into a large national data set, and then have access to a wide range of reporting and benchmarks, as well as other support via their dashboard and other resources. Just to say as well that the new Audience Finder Answers dashboard and support resource is in its test phase to officially launch from April, but you can take a look at that at the moment if you are a user. We deliver a really wide range of bespoke work as well. That includes formative research and analysis, audience development planning, both in terms of supporting organisations to create their own plans, as well as actually creating plans with and for organisations. And working on supporting organisations around audience-centered innovation and change. So really putting all audiences right at the centre of the planning process. So I'm going to start with a bit of a definition now of what is audience development. So audience development is widely defined as a process to increase or to change for the better the numbers engaging with an organisation, the diversity of audiences, and the depth or scope of people's engagement. We have our own definition here at the Audience Agency. So audience development is a planned organisation-wide approach to extending the range and nature of relationships with the public by focusing on their needs. It helps a cultural organisation to achieve its social purpose, financial sustainability, and creative ambitions. There are lots of other definitions around, for example, from Arts Council England, Heritage Lottery. But the kind of common thread here that's at the heart of these is that they put audiences at the heart of planned decision making across the whole organisation. So it's a process that really comes from the needs of audiences. And just to say that throughout this session, I'll be using the term audiences continuously, but we use this very much in its broadest sense. And this includes people who might engage with an organisation in person, online, as an audience member, as a visitor, participant, community member, or another type of stakeholder. So it means all of those people that engage with an organisation. Broadly, there are three ways in which you can develop your audiences. So one of those is more. And what we mean by that is more of the same type of audience, so increasing footfall. So looking to increase more, you'd be looking at sort of the types of people that you engage at the moment who already like your existing offer, and thinking about where you can find more of similar types of people who might also engage with your existing offer. And then this broader reach. So thinking about how you can broaden your audience out, reaching new types of people. That might be in relation to opportunities you've identified, for example, in your local population. It could be around meeting some of your kind of social aims, or it could be around sort of untapped opportunities. So opportunities to even bring in income from new people. There's also deeper engagements with existing audiences. So this is concerned with encouraging the people that you already engage to do more with you. And that might be visiting more frequently, engaging with different offers, and perhaps even donating or becoming an advocate for your organisation. And your audience development plan may well involve all three types of audience development in consideration of different types of audience and strategic priorities. Cultural organisations are always in the position of balancing priorities across artistic and cultural, financial and social. And really just to sort of make the point here that audiences are at the heart of success across all three of these areas. So taking a strategic approach to audience development planning helps to see how engaging different types of audience can support delivery of different priorities. And they might span the priorities of your funders and other stakeholders, internal priorities across departments, as well as helping to break down any potential or perceived conflicts between different priority areas as you're trying to manage all of that within your organisation. This is the broad audience development planning process we're following during this session, and we've included links both throughout the slide and at the end of this the slide deck to a really wide range of support resources. So do take a look at those after the session and explore what else there is to kind of support you in this audience development planning process. There's also an audience development planning guide as well. We've linked to that at the end, and that's kind of works with this same sort of broad planning process here. Audience development requires an investment of time from your organisation, but this is a flexible process and you can follow and adapt to meet your own needs. We're not suggesting at all that everybody's audience development plan looks the same and everybody follows this in a really sort of precise way. It's absolutely flexible. The aim of this process is really to help you to think about the different areas of audience development planning and what the steps you might need to go through to sort of do this in a holistic way. And really what's key to success is that the process is informed by real evidence and includes the space and time for reflective learning. And you can see here what we advocate for is a continual cycle, and that includes a cycle of continuing improvement and change as you start to gain feedback and then put all that back into your planning at the start. So why do you need an audience development plan? Hopefully if you're in this session you might have a good sense of that, but just to bring a bit of context into that, this Terry Pratchett quote I think sums up quite well the importance of planning for the future, and planning that's rooted back to your organisation's core purpose and an understanding of the current situation you're in. If you do not know where you come from, then you don't know where you are, and if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going wrong. So what are the features of effective audience development planning? Targeted activities often occur as part of a funded project within the cultural sector, or they result from the focus of specific teams or areas of service delivery. Effective audience development planning, however, is an ongoing and inclusive strategy for change, and it helps you to move away from focusing just on projects or campaigns. Importantly, it's mission-led and helps to balance your priorities in different areas of organisational development. So supporting delivery on your social purpose, financial sustainability, and your creative or curatorial practice ambitions. It's also really empowering as it helps you to say no when activity doesn't support your overall mission and purpose. It uses evidence to inform decision making, really important, not based on assumptions, but rooted and based in real evidence. And informs and supports audience-focused practices and places audiences and an understanding of their needs right at the centre of the process. It also addresses how to use different strategies to engage with different sorts of audience, and that encompasses absolutely both existing and new audiences. And delivery can often be fragmented across different teams within organisations. Good audience development planning is organisation-wide and integrates departments and operations across your organisation. It also helps you to make best use of the resources available to target activity at the people you want to reach, and being really clear about that the activity you're undertaking will be really targeted and help you to really meet your goals. And it's about long-term relationships and development. So a continuous process of review, ensuring continued relevance is really important here. Alongside this sort of long-term view, it also supports a measured response to the unexpected, for example, COVID. So how do you judge if your plan is right for you? Well, there are lots of different ways to create an audience development plan, and the main thing is that it must work for your organization and be a useful tool that genuinely helps you in your work. It also needs to help you understand the impact of any changes you put in place and help you reflect on your progress. So back to that kind of continual cycle and wheel that we looked at just a moment ago. Enabling you to adjust things that aren't working quite as you want, and of course to celebrate your successes. I'm going to move on now to thinking about your mission, purpose and goals as an organization and how this relates to the audience development planning process. Identifying your purpose as an organization is often really the hardest thing to do, and different people within an organization or a team might have different perspectives depending on their understanding of priorities, thinking back to that triple bottom line before, but it's also really crucial to any strategic planning. Really understanding your purpose can be empowering. It allows you to question whether something you are being asked to do or want to do yourself will really contribute to the delivery of your overall purpose and how it will do that. It supports targeted use of resources. You're less likely to use time and money on ad hoc projects that have no long-term impacts or legacy in terms of developing your organization. And the process, once you've thought and advised and really kind of unpicked your purpose as an organization, the next step that emerges from that is then to devise audience goals that support you in that purpose. So audience goals translate the higher aims and ambitions of the organization into broad audience goals or focuses, the things that you want to do that connect to audiences. They're aligned with top-level business objectives, and they're likely to be a combination of financial, social, educational, or experiential, reputational, and creative. And I've just shown an example on the screen here of this is a real example from an organization that we worked with. So they had a broad kind of strategic aim to better meet the needs of customers and audiences. And then that translated into a set of audience goals, for example, happier customers and a further increase in positive feedback, and less transactional and deeper, more explorative relationships with audiences, enabling conversation around program on needs. And of course, your own audience goals will be absolutely driven by your own needs and kind of come from your own purpose. So it might look quite different to that, but thought useful just to share sort of an example there with you. So once you've defined your purpose and goals, the next phase then is to move into an analysis of your current situation. So going back to the sort of wheel here in the analysis section here, this looks at where you're starting from initially. So analysis of your current situation really helps to ensure informed development. And one really critical area to include is an analysis of your current audiences. So understanding who engages with you and where they come from, which parts of your organization's offer they engage with and how often. And, really start to think about how you can set those benchmarks for the people you engage with, and that might include in-person, digital and participatory audiences. You can use insight from a really wide range of sources here. That might include an audience survey, your ticketing system, any participation records, and digital analytics. But really understanding the wide range of audiences that you engage with and setting benchmarks as far as possible. I think just to say as well at this stage that where you find that you don't have the information that you think you need for your planning process around your audiences, it's a really good idea to kind of make sure that that becomes one of your audience goals. So where you don't have that, really set that as an audience goal and something to absolutely address as a priority and help increase importance within the organization. So one of the most useful ways of combining your findings is to create a clear segmentation using insight to group people by distinct needs that you can respond to. So when you've sort of gathered data on your current audiences, you can start by first of all, start by identifying groups that are important to you, and then layer up this insight to build a picture of their characteristics, their needs, and their values. And this can be quite an iterative process depending on the amount of data you have at your fingertips. So you can begin with a hypothesis and plan to add evidence over time where you don't necessarily have everything you need right now. So you might identify some broad groups, for example, such as infrequent attenders for large-scale events who might travel more than 45 minutes to get to you, or regular families who visit at least twice a year. They're interested in participatory activities and tend to live within 5 miles. There's a few kind of points here on segmentation to bear in mind. Taking these on board will help to really ensure that your segments and the way that you're thinking about grouping audiences together is fit for purpose. The first of those is, do you have the evidence and know enough about them? So really key here is making sure that you're using real evidence and not grouping people by assumptions. So really gathering something that's real there. Is the segment big enough? Are there enough of these people to make your activities worthwhile? What you don't want to be doing is to kind of grouping people into very sort of niche and small groups, for example. And are they reachable? Do you know where to find them and how to communicate with them? If you can't access them and reach them, then obviously they're not going to necessarily be that helpful for you as a group. And the last point here is, are they homogeneous? Do they share enough of the same characteristics to be targeted with the same activities and the messages? And there are lots of links at the end of the slides to further resources supporting segmentation here. So obviously I've just taken a bit of an overview today, but do sort of check out some of the links and that can help support you in this approach. So a segmentation of your audience is not the same as a segmentation of the population, like Audience Spectrum, although you can use it and tools like it to understand your own audience segments. So I'm going to move on now just to think about Audience Spectrum and introduce it. And I appreciate a lot of people here might be super familiar with this, but just please bear with me. I'd like to just go over it in case there are people who haven't been using this tool or aren't familiar with it. Audience Spectrum segments the UK population on the basis of their engagement with and attitudes towards arts and culture. It's highly geolocatable. Each UK household has a segment assigned to it, and it's based on a wide range of data sources. The National Depth Survey taking part, cultural proximity indices that look at where people live in relation to cultural offers, demographics from census data, wider consumer data from Experian, as well as the Audience Finder data set itself. There are 10 segments. 3 of these in orange here are highly engaged with culture. So they're often the segments that appear most prominently within organizations or amongst organizations' audiences, and offer some of the greatest and most immediate opportunities for engagement. The 3 shown in green here are those with medium or more occasional engagement with culture. So non-averse to culture, but not as kind of frequent as the highly engaged groups. And then the 4 less engaged groups shown here in blue, which in many cases might form the focus for outreach work. And within each of these broad, high, medium and low engaged bands, each group demonstrates real differences in behaviour, preferences, opportunities, needs and barriers. You can determine how many in your own audience fall into each audience spectrum segment just with full postcodes or household data from your survey or booking system. And you'll know that if you use Audience Finder that this is included as standard in your dashboard. You can also request bespoke audience spectrum analysis outside of Audience Finder. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with us directly. I'm not going to explore audience spectrum in more detail now, but there is a really wide range of resources to support you to use this tool. And that includes detailed pen portraits for each segment that allow you to understand their preferences, attitudes, behavior, needs and barriers. And all the links to those are included at the end of the slide deck. So just going back to thinking about the situational analysis phase of audience development planning, other areas to explore alongside your audiences include your current service or program offer. So establishing what you do for different types of audience and what's working well and for whom. Also, what's not working so well at the moment, what might need to change. And current marketing activities and their effectiveness. So looking at your existing channels and messages and where you have this information already, their reach, effectiveness and return on investment. And just back to that point I made earlier, where if you find you don't yet have the evidence you need to fully understand the situation, look back to setting a goal to address this. Then just thinking for a moment to move away from this starting point into where do you want to be? So setting out the audiences you want to reach and why, linking back to your mission and audience goals, establish what your target audience is looking for and how you will reach them. There are a really wide range of insights available to explore what the population looks like in your catchment area and to use that information to explore where there might be opportunities to develop audiences. And you can compare this information to your current audiences to identify where there's scope for development and direction around the broader, deeper or more engagement opportunities. So the types of data that you can look at to understand opportunities in your catchment population include area profile reports, local authority population data, which is often quite widely available, the audience spectrum mapping tool, I'll show you that in just a moment, and the new Audience Finder Answers dashboard. And if you're in an area with significant tourism, then tourism agencies can often provide insights about who's visiting your area, development priorities for tourism in the area that you might want to sort of tap into and support, as well as changing tourism trends, for example, due to the pandemic. So as I mentioned, one really useful source of population data is area profile reports, and these bring together data from Experian and the Office for National Statistics about the population in a defined area, and they cover demographics and cultural engagement. There's a more enhanced version called the Engagement Area Profile Report as well, and that includes really very detailed additional information on areas such as health, household, composition, ethnicity, language, and deprivation. You can find out more about them more generally at the link at the bottom of the slide. It's also worth saying you can access regional area profile reports for free via the Audience Finder dashboard as well. There's links here on the slide here. Even if you're not inputting data into Audience Finder, you can still get a login for the dashboard and go in and access all this free information. So the other thing I wanted to mention as well, particularly, is the audience spectrum mapping tool. So this can be used to access details about the number and proportion of each of the audience spectrum segments within the population at postal sector level. So you can see an example here on the screen of the commuter land culture buffs segment, one of the highly engaged groups, and it shows you a proportion in they're spread across the population in an area at postal sector level. Again, you can access this completely for free via the Audience Finder dashboard. So it's a really useful and immediate way of finding out who's in your area or in an area you might be touring to if you're a touring organization, for example. So thinking, continuing on this theme of really establishing where you want to be, the wider environment in which your organization operates will directly affect your ability to engage audiences and the opportunities that that provides. And exploring wider contextual scenarios and data will really therefore be an important part of your situational analysis. So this will include likely looking at sector and area benchmarks. I'll show you in just a moment how you can do that in Audience Finder as one example. And through this type of data, you can look at how your audience compares to those wider benchmarks and identify whether there might be any missed opportunities, any audiences, the groups, for example, that are appearing widely within similar organizations that you're not reaching so well, for example. Competitor mapping and thinking about your competitors is a really useful part of the analysis as well. I've shown an example here on the screen of a competitor map where you can use two different relevant attributes to compare how your organization might sit as compared to others in your area. So you can understand where your competitive advantages might be, your unique selling points, your disadvantages as well as thinking about collaborative opportunities that might affect or support you in meeting your goals. And just going back to, I mentioned a moment ago, sort of that wider sectoral benchmarking data that you can draw on as well to understand your own positioning. So there's a wide range of data available in the Audience Finder dashboard, and that helps provide national art form context. We can see here on regional context as well. So we can see here on the screen just a snapshot of some of the data that for Northeast of England. So we get an overview from the dashboard of audiences across the Northeast of England. You can also look by art form groups. We've just shown as an example here outdoor arts, but you can go into there and just explore some of that data and understand you know, what the bigger picture looks like. And that wider context as well is particularly important right now in terms of understanding changed opportunities in light of the pandemic. So in addition to what your own audience analysis is telling you about change behaviour, a really wide range of national data is available, and that includes the Cultural Participation Monitor, so a survey that's been operating in waves since autumn 2020, that samples the whole population and explores cultural engagement and intentions. So the chart you can see here now is an example from the research showing willingness to attend cultural events in person. And that's hardly increased between February and September this year, we can see on the screen here. The study also covers physical, digital and participatory cultural engagement. And this second chart here shows, just as an example, levels of interest in digital event formats. And that's from the very recent wave of the survey that we've just completed in November this year. You can find there's lots more in the Cultural Participation Monitor. There's been 5 waves so far, so lots of data to kind of explore there. And you can find much more via our website. And again, there's a link here on this slide and at the end of the slide deck. As things really change and continue to change in light of the pandemic, working in an agile way to constantly assess evolving opportunities will help you to keep up to date with developments. So being aware of and accessing some of these wider data sets, and there are others out there as well, but just really understanding what data you can access and kind of keeping a really close check on that to help support you as things constantly change over the next few months or years. An especially useful tool for analysing your organisation's current situation is a SWOT analysis. I'm sure many of you have used this before. As part of the audience development planning process, undertaking a SWOT that's particularly focused on factors affecting audiences and your ability to engage can be incredibly useful and insightful. And really kind of works well when you're doing that with input from across your organisation. So perhaps as during a sort of workshop live session, something like that initially, but something that really kind of gathers those views from across your organisation So the SWOT explores internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. And obviously, people's views on that can sometimes be quite different. So kind of really bringing people together to kind of discuss and debate some of those areas could be incredibly helpful. Also useful for further interrogating your external environment is the pest analysis. And this can really help to kind of focus your thinking about the external factors that might affect your organization's ability to engage with audiences. So the P is political. That might include things like government interventions or policies, local government, national government. Economic, perhaps disposable income amongst the population, unemployment or economic growth. The S for social, factors such as demographics within your catchment area, behaviours, cultural barriers and attitudes in the population. And technological, such as innovations in technology that may affect what you do or the opportunities available, as well as the technological access and awareness within your potential marketplace. I'd just like to move on now to focus for a few minutes on what it means to take an audience-centered view of your offer. What you offer and how you can talk about it can make a really big difference to who you engage with. So a good example of how that works in practice is considering features, that's the facts about your offer, and benefits, the reasons why people will want to engage. And in some cases, and from some audience groups, these may look quite similar, but in others, very different. For example, for some audiences, the features of an 18th century house and garden might also be the benefit and get to engage because that's what they're particularly interested in. For others, those particular features, the benefits really to attending would be a relaxing space to escape from everyday life. So really understanding the benefits that you offer to different target audience groups is important in order to effectively engage with them and speak to them in an effective manner that will engage them. In practice, audience development really means inviting people to do something. And in thinking about the people you need to reach to achieve your goals, it's good to question if you really understand how they see your organization, what they want and need from you, how to invite them, and what you might need to change to reach and engage them. The user journey includes digital as well as physical touch points. So dig into what social media channels your target audiences use, for example, how they find out information and make decisions. So I'll just say the image here is from a digital touchpoints research project we did with the National Gallery. And really considering the many audience touchpoints across the physical and digital is incredibly useful to really understand the ways in which people interact with your organization and the different points at which they do that. The impressions they get about your organization at each of those touch points and what they need from you at each of those touch points as well. And you might need to be prepared to make some really significant changes in order to engage some of your target groups. So taking on board a design thinking approach, starting with insight and detailed consultation with target audiences to find out about their needs. Then a process of designing and perhaps co-designing new offers to meet these needs, about testing those ideas and then revising them based on feedback. We're going to take a short break now. If we can come back in about 5 minutes time, that would be great. I think we've had about just over 5 minutes now, so I'm going to restart. Hopefully everybody's managed to grab a drink and get back to their desk. I'd like to move now onto strategic planning. So thinking about setting strategies essentially to help you achieve meet your audience goals. So strategies, as I said, are approaches to meet your audience goals and to reach your target audiences. And your strategic planning needs to consider in particular how to break down into targeted approaches for different audiences and specific goals. So really kind of breaking that down is key. So thinking differently about the different audience you engage and the different goals that you're trying to reach as an organization. Considering a way to account for any inconsistencies between artistic ambitions and the potential to engage with target audiences. So this can be quite a big sticking point really within the audience development planning process. So working out how these two things can come together, and actually the results will be meaningful engagement with the audiences you want to reach. Also thinking about covering approaches to developing the experience, programming and the offer, as well as things like communications and marketing. So this is quite strategies around audience development should be quite holistic, and where changes to your offer will enable you to reach more audiences, that absolutely should be something that you're considering. Think particularly about how you can maximize the potential of your offer, and about the benefits from the audience perspective. So going back to that earlier content, thinking very clearly around, not just the features of your offers, but the benefits to the people that you want to engage. Also thinking about legacy planning, so how your strategies might support your development in the longer term, considering areas including audiences, maybe advocacy and community engagement. There's lots of tools available to help you identify strategies, and one which we found to be particularly effective is the Ansoff matrix. You may well have come across this before. It was originally devised in 1957 by Igor Ansoff as a strategic business development tool. It can be a really useful way to start to break down and map out complex audience development strategies into what you will do and for who. And it includes 4 main approaches based on a combination of new and existing audiences and new and existing offers. And when you're planning strategies as part of your audience development plan, really making sure that you've got a good balance across these 4 boxes is absolutely key, and will help to kind of ensure that your organization is both looking after its current audiences as well as thinking about new ones. So I'm just going to go through each of the four sections and talk through what they mean. So in the bottom left is market penetration, and that's concerned with further expansion of your current audiences with your current offers. So all the things that work really well for your current audiences and are enjoyed by them. And approaches here might include developing loyalty through a membership scheme, through volunteering, perhaps looking at ways to increase secondary spend from your current audiences, or try and encourage them to make more frequent visits to your organization. Also here within this box is considering increasing footfall and income through reaching more of the same type of audience. So thinking about the types of people you have now and thinking, okay, we know that they like our current offer. How can we identify more of the same types of people within our local catchment, for example, and reach them with our core offer? So through promoting, for example, in areas where they're concentrated. Market development in the top left is about presenting your current offer in a way that will attract new types of visitor. So the approach here is focused on engaging more and different people with the work that you already do as an organization. So that might be about reaching out to new areas. It might be about presenting your offer in a different way that appeals to a different type of attender. It might be about developing your welcome to ensure that new types of people feel welcome when they're coming into your building, for example. It might be about different messaging and marketing channels to appeal to, and thinking back to the sort of benefits that your offer might offer to a different group of people to really appeal to that within your group, as well as using new marketing channels to reach people that you might not have already reached. So offer development in the bottom right is about creating new products for current audiences. And the approach here centers on encouraging existing audiences to do more and different things with you. That might include offering incentives to encourage people to try a new type of show, for example. Or if you're perhaps a multi-site venue, it might be encouraging current visitors to one site to visit another. It might be about programming new and extended events, such as talks and tours or online events. So events designed for your existing audience and encouraging them to engage with you in a different way. And up in the top right corner is diversification. And sometimes with funding available in the sector, there's kind of a tendency to put perhaps a little bit too much in this box. Because often developmental opportunities involve new audiences and new offers. So thinking about the fact that this is the riskiest area because it's all unknown. It tends to be particularly resource intensive because you're bringing the new together with the new. But it can also be where the most rewarding development work happens. Approaches you might typically find in this box include funded projects, but really important back to what we were saying before, to identify those in line with your strategic goals. Work in this box might be an opportunity for application of the design thinking approach that I talked through earlier. So this might be around developing a whole new strand of offer, such as co-created content or newly commissioned work or a new collecting area, and working specifically with new audiences to do that and in line with their needs. I've just got a few examples with some case studies that you can link to on our website of things in each of those boxes. So in the top, the bottom left, we've got market penetration, and you can link through and just have a bit of a read of some of the work that these organisations have been doing. So Rambert Dance, so increasing ticket yield from existing audience is a project that they looked at there, and it sort of sets out what they've done there. But they were successful in implementing strategies to increase ticket yield from existing audiences in some of their areas. In the top left is Barnsley Museums. There's quite a big case study from Barnsley Museums on our website about some of the work they've been doing during the pandemic. And one of the things they particularly did that sort of fits into the market development area was about maximizing the appeal of their outdoor spaces. So an existing space that they had, but really maximizing that to reach people during the pandemic. In offer development, there's quite a number of kind of examples here. One particularly interesting one was Opera North. So they developed a series of online work. So Opera North at Home, Opera North on Demand, looking to engage their existing audiences in a new way and with a new approach during the pandemic. And then in the diversification box, an example from East Durham Creates. So they took an evidence-led and community-based approach to creating free family events for Facebook families and one of the low engaged audience spectrum segments. They're actually quite interesting. Facebook families are quite a big segment in lots of different areas, and a lot of organizations that I've worked with have found that actually to really kind of meet some of their social objectives, that's one of the groups that they really need to engage. So that one might be quite interesting, particularly if your organization's in that particular scenario. So how to balance in-person and online strategies, maybe something that organizations are facing more now in light of the way people engaged with culture during the pandemic. And of course, this relates to kind of cultural content online, but also marketing as well. But just thinking about the ways in which people engage with your organization online alongside their in-person engagement. A really critical point here, the most critical point really, is to work back from your audience goals to see where digital cultural delivery, content and communications enables you to meet them. So really getting away from doing digital for digital's sake. Digital should be integrated as much within your plan as anything you're doing in person, back to meeting your overall goals. We've showed an example here on the slides of an empathy map. There's a link through to this one, but there's lots of other sort of examples of this online you can find. But it can be a particularly useful tool to explore how your target audiences behave both physically and digitally. So we're spending a little bit of time kind of thinking about that relationship, perhaps through a structured tool like this might be a really helpful part of your planning process. And then just to say that sort of stress really the importance of testing your digital content by constantly evaluating with real users. Whilst this applies to your physical offers too, it might be a particular consideration for digital content where you may be doing something new, for example, and where opportunities and expectations evolve at such a fast pace. So moving on now to setting objectives. So objectives define what success will look like and how you can measure it. And really key here is about refining ambitions down into SMART objectives for chosen strategies. You may well have seen the SMART acronym before many times, but it's a really useful reminder of sort of thinking about what's important in terms of setting objectives. So the S is specific, the goal is clearly defined and it's unambiguous. So really kind of ensuring clarity across your organization, everybody knows what they're aiming for and what they're measuring. Measurable, so the goal uses concrete evidence to measure achievement, and it is measurable as well, so that you know that you can measure it and measure the success in that particular objective. Could be through many different methodologies. It could be your audience survey, your ticketing. It might be that a goal is measurable through qualitative audience techniques. So it could be that you know, you want to measure a certain shift in perceptions or something like that, that you might be addressing in that way. But as long as you define that it's measurable and you set out how you're going to do that, that's kind of the critical thing. The goal must be achievable. So you want something to be challenging, but not out of reach. You don't want to be setting yourself up for failure, essentially. But you do want to be challenged as an organization and kind of ensuring that something's achievable, kind of really drawing on all the data that you have to date can be incredibly helpful in making sure that you can kind of set achievable goals. It must be relevant. Just going back again to it mattering to your organization, relating back to that overall mission, purpose, and the audience goals that you want to achieve. And it needs to be timetabled. So goals need grounding within a time frame. So say what you're going to do and when you'll do it by. So you have a very specific time by which measurement can take place. I've just included a little bit here as well on setting digital objectives. I thought it might be helpful just to unpick this a little bit further. There's obviously lots more to kind of delve into here, but just to give you a few sort of points to think about really. Social media and website analytics can give us too much data often. So when you're thinking about digital objectives, concentrate on the data which will help answer the questions you're asking. And benchmarking is really key to understanding what is working and what isn't working. So really kind of unpicking, what does success mean to you? Is it a target amount of people attending a live stream talk or performance, for example? Is it enough people clicking on a link in your post to buy a ticket? Is it building a community which talks to you? And when you're setting objectives, think about if and how you can measure these, and then how you can act on the findings to make changes to improve. Using digital analytics to make decisions is quite an iterative process. So it's important to regularly review what is working and interrogate what isn't working, and then adapt objectives as appropriate as you go. Just the speed at which things change, for example, just means that keeping a really close eye on it and keeping on top of it can be really important. So moving now on to action planning. So this relates to what you will do and when. And it's concerned with setting out a timetable, budgeted and resourced range of activities designed to meet your audience development objectives and your audience goals. The engagement mix is a useful concept here to approach your action planning, and it brings together the traditional 4 Ps of marketing practice. So product, price, promotion, and place, with the 3 Cs of community engagement, and they're focused on involving people in decision-making, exploration, and dialogue. So the marketing mix, or 4 Ps of marketing, represents the main elements in meeting people's needs to engage them with what you do. So these are the things that will really affect someone's ability to engage with your organization or not. So first of all, thinking about your product or your program. And this includes your core program. It could include any surrounding benefits. That might be a talk or a tour, for example, additional interpretation. And really critically here, being clear about what aspects of your program are aimed at different target audiences. So the place, this is where your activities take place, at what times, how people access them. It includes things like booking facilities and social spaces and environments of the place in which people engage with what you do. It also includes both digital and physically. You might be offering a digital place for people to engage alongside physical places. So really kind of thinking about how place will affect people's ability to engage with what you do, and any changes you might be able to make to increase your reach to help you to better reach the audiences you want to reach. So price as well. So the kind of critical thing here is the right price or approach, and that's the right price to meet the needs of the people you want to engage with, and that might be free or not. So it depends. Just kind of thinking about for each of those groups, what is the right price for that group, and thinking as well about the cost of the whole trip. So obviously there might be tickets or there may not be. Things like catering, shop, car parking, the total cost that it would, the total amount that it would cost somebody to come and visit your organization. And then just kind of back to meeting the needs of target audiences, how your price, think about really how your pricing policy can help you to achieve both your social and financial objectives, and where there might need to be shifts, compromises and balancing there to ensure that you can kind of meet objectives across both of those areas. Promotion is the tools to communicate with your target audiences. It includes online and offline channels, methods to engage. Think about the different types of communication particularly. So broadcast communications tends to be more about generic messages and awareness out to a wide audience, but with very little targeting. So something like a poster up in your town centre, for example, may come under that banner, or press, or coverage in the press, for example. And then targeted and tailored messages. So how do you kind of ensure that you're really tailoring and targeting the right messages to the right people using the right communication channels? And really here, using evidence to inform your understanding. is really important, and kind of consulting with people to find out, you know, what sort of channels they might reach, use, and they might access. Using things like the audience spectrum profiles, if you're using that tool, to see which tools are particularly effective as to communicate with the different segments, for example. And the idea of evidence really goes across all 4 of these groups. So kind of really understanding the needs for all your target audiences across these 4 areas. And then thinking about how that balances to come together into an offer that each group will be able to engage with and find appealing. The 3 C's of community engagement are focused on meaningful and sustainable interactions with communities, and on 2-way communications or relationships. So community involvement, that cover things like forums for decision making, for volunteering. Content, creative or exploratory content that might be curatorial, online, for example, but content that's specifically designed for the communities that you want to engage. And then co-creation. So thinking about the role of active participation in of communities and target audiences in devising and or creating and curating cultural experiences. So some useful questions to start with here are: what are you already doing to involve people in decision making, action and creation? And then really thinking about what else you need or want to do in order to sort of bring these elements into your planning to engage the people in the communities that your organization wants to reach. Moving on now to just look at the review section of the plan. Really important part of the plan, and it helps you to establish whether you've achieved what you set out to do. So review is concerned with measuring progress towards your objectives. And the smarter your objectives are, the easier this is to do. And one really important thing to think about as well is who you need to collect evaluation data for, who's going to be using it, what format they need it in, as well. So that all those kind of questions. So when you're building in how you're going to review the success of your plan and the activities that you're putting in place, think about the ultimate audiences for that information at the end. It's inevitably going to be internal, but it might include a really wide range of other stakeholders, especially funders, people like that. So picking the right tools to measure success is absolutely key. And this will be very much dependent on what you're doing. So it's difficult to be too specific here. They might include an audience survey, ticketing system, web analytics, digital survey, qualitative research methods as well. And then find the time and space to review regularly and communicate findings to the rest of your organization. So this is a really important part of the audience development planning process, ensuring that you're collecting the evidence about the things that you have put in place, about the initiatives you put in place, about all the work that you've done, and constantly adjusting or adapting in response to your feedback. And it can be really easy to kind of not spend the time doing this and sort of putting in place any opportunities to do that, whether that's a sort of coffee break briefing or a kind of regular time every few weeks, a presentation, part of a regular meeting, whatever will work for your organization, but just really kind of making sure that you do have the time and space in your plan to do that. So the last section I'd like to move on to now is bringing your whole organization on board. And we've mentioned quite a few times throughout the session the importance of kind of working across your organization, bringing different departments and teams together into the audience development planning process. So I've just got a little bit of information here that might help to support thinking about how you can do that. Involvement is really key, and consultation at all stages of the process. So starting with the conversations about your purpose and setting audience goals, through to sharing and discussing findings from your review process and the implications of those. Another kind of really key principle here is making sure that when you're consulting with other people in the team, that you're genuinely listening and taking on board what people say. So that it's definitely doesn't become a sort of anything tokenistic, it's genuine. And if you can't take someone's suggestion on board, let them know why. Also really powerful is relating the planning process to individual or team's own work. So ask people for input, involve them in a really proactive way in defining the implications for their team and in generating ideas about that, how their team contribute to achieving audience goals. When we work as consultants with organizations around audience development planning, we very often bring teams together in a sort of workshop environment and then kind of set people tasks that really help them to apply the findings and our suggestions to their own areas of work. Remember too that teams don't experience change in the same way. So we've put a diagram up here that might be helpful. It sets out the variety of people and behaviours you might expect to deal with in bringing a whole organisation on board with something like audience development planning. So think about where different teams and individuals might sit on this matrix and how you can use, for example, the champions to bring others on board. How can you minimize the effect of the saboteurs and critics? So for example, can you bring them on board through more direct involvement by framing things in a different way? For example, bringing target audience groups to life. Lots of different sort of things to think about there, but useful to think about the types of people that you might need to deal with and bring into the conversation. And lastly, one useful tool you might want to consider using is RACI. We've used this quite extensively actually internally at the audience agency. And this is a framework that could be used for different elements of your plan to make it clear who has responsibility for carrying out a particular strand or area, who has the overall authority, so who's the ultimate decision maker, who needs to be consulted and have their opinions considered, and then who needs to be informed of what to do or what will happen. So that's everything I had to go through in terms of the content. I'm just going to show you that we've pulled together here at the end some resources. So we've got resources around audience development and audience spectrum, understanding population opportunities, around segmentation, and around understanding sector opportunities. And I know that Monique has been posting quite a few links into the chat as I've been talking as well. Obviously, if you do have anything else you want to check with us, please do get in touch. We also have a slide that is a bit more focused on how we might be able to help. So there's some support there around audience-centered design, community consultation, and creating an audience development plan and supporting you through the process, as well as some support there around embedding audience development across your organisation. So that's all I had to cover. So I think we've got a little bit of time for some questions if there's anything to check there. I see lots of activity in the chat.
I just sent a couple of the questions, Catherine, that come through throughout the presentation. I sent them directly to you.
Oh, right, okay, brilliant. I'll just have a quick look at those. Okay, so there's one here. What are the key principles and practices between audience development and getting new customers and keeping customers in a business context? So I think just one thing to say, first of all, we would very much always include retaining current customers and audiences as part of the audience development process. And I think in terms of practices and principles, it depends really very much what you want to do as an organization. So it's very difficult to be specific about that. The ANSOF matrix is a really useful tool for making sure that you're balancing those two areas. And actually, you know, really where you should be starting from is looking after the people you're currently engaging, because they're almost your kind of bread and butter, really. So in terms of maybe starting from that point and then looking at the ways in which you might develop out in line with your audience goals there. In terms of what can the two learn from each other? I think one of the things here, I mean, some of the, I guess I was thinking back to the ANSOF matrix again here as well, that kind of where you're sort of looking at that portfolio of how you might get new people on board, for example, through get new people on board into current activity, or you might go and sort of try and get some of your current audiences to engage with you in a different way, for example. So I suppose there's something really critical here about that overall portfolio that you offer as an organization in terms of your programming, and where the audiences sit within that, and sort of how they support each other. So how you sort of take as well your current audience on the journey with you as you might be making developments in other areas of your offer. Hopefully that sort of gives some perspective on that. I think, yeah, difficult to be very specific, but hopefully that gives a little bit of a kind of perspective on sort of balancing those two things, really.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Okay, online events have changed the geographical reach. So how do we go about segmenting new and global audiences? I didn't specifically include a lot on digital analytics here, because I think that in itself is a new is kind of, you know, a session in itself, really. But I think just really understanding the kind of digital tools, the analytics tools you use and their capabilities, and then sort of understanding what it is that you can find out from those, essentially, and what meaningful segmentation might be for your organization. So, for example, if you're using Google Analytics and you're able to identify you know, where people geographically, for example, where people are joining from, and some other kind of maybe basic data about them, whether that's enough, whether you might want to think about introducing things like online audience surveys as well. So that will enable you to directly gain a much deeper level of understanding from a sample of the people that are engaging with your online events. Just to say as well, you can do that for free via the New Audience Finder Answers dashboard. If you want to set up an online survey, you can do that directly through that. And that kind of methodology will enable you to obviously understand things like audience spectrum profiling, collect postcodes from people, and then location, but also that you can include things like audience spectrum profiling. So you're able to directly compare. That won't work at a global level, but certainly for online engagement within this country. You can do some direct comparisons there with a physical audience. Oh, so I'm just going through to see what I might be able to address. Any suggestions for starting conversations where your target audience may not be interested in your core offer or art form? There is a link to a resource around community engagements at the end of the slide. We do have lots of other resources on our website as well around that. So I think starting very much with good community engagement principles. Often partners are really key, though, in this situation. So thinking about the partners within your area who might help you to support reach sort of certain people. I think one of the examples I used earlier, East Durham Creates, so that's the Creative People and Places project, but they worked with partners as well as the audience spectrum segmentation profile breakdown to kind of really devise, reach people and to devise an offer that was suitable for the population within that area. So very much around partnerships. So it's really kind of key to identify where they may help and possible. And I think as much as you can do to understand what the barriers might be before you start to talk to them. So for example, if you are dealing with something like an audience spectrum segment, understanding what the likely barriers, some of the likely barriers might be so that you can be prepared for them. Sorry, I'm just going through. Somebody asked, is there a best practice template audience? Oh, sorry, I think you've addressed that, Monique. Thank you.
There's a question on whether people are seen to be engaging differently with physical marketing materials since the pandemic.
I don't think I'm not aware of any particular data on that, actually, if I'm honest. I don't know. So have you noticed a difference in how effective physical marketing materials such as flyers are compared to digital marketing materials since the pandemic? Are people now really unlikely to pick up flyers and brochures or go to places where they're typically found in the first place, or are they still pretty crucial? I have to say I'm not aware that we have that insight. I know specifically the Cultural Participation Monitor, it looks at willingness to return to in-person cultural events, so that will obviously give you a sense of the sort of proportion of people who are currently nervous about that. So to help you in sort of understanding how that might present sort of barriers for you potentially. But I don't think, I'm not aware of anything specifically about people picking up flyers, I have to say. I'm sorry. I don't know, Monique, I don't know if you know of anything that could.
I think we've had anecdotal feedback that people have been cautious to pick up flyers and things. Yeah, as you say, we don't have the evidence to back that up, but that's been the sense across the sector, that people are now starting to return to places where they're picking up that content again.
That's great, thank you. Is there anything else that there
was one about
the audience, yeah. So are the audience spectrum segmentation categories adopted widely across the sector, or do organisations tend to articulate their own segments? I think it's a bit of both. And quite often, actually, when we're working as consultants with audience spectrum segmentation to support an organisation in planning, sometimes we'll use the audience spectrum segments as they are, but sometimes we'll sort of use a combination of data. So we might look at something like, for example, family audiences, and express some of the needs that perhaps we've seen in survey feedback, but then kind of combined in with the big family audience spectrum groups that we know are in the local area, for example. So we might, maybe it's a segment that's sort of focused on local families, and we know that especially they're likely to be in the trips and treats segment, and we know that trips and treats have quite mainstream tastes, for example, and are strongly motivated by spending time with friends and family. So it really depends what's relevant for you, but I think sometimes they're a great fit to use as is. If you find that's not the case, really kind of understanding the segment profiles and who lives in the area that you're interested in, the population that you're interested in, and then considering how those two things might sit alongside each other. So another, I just think of another example of how that's worked in practice. So Okay, so what we often find with families, actually, what we often find is that we've got quite a big family market spanning, say, trips and treats and dormitory dependables, which isn't primarily family, but they do have a lot of a high proportion have children. So we tend to find, perhaps we've analysed somebody's Booker data and find that those two are particularly kind of prominent. So then in sort of sketching out their target audience, we might be kind of drawing on the needs and preferences of those two segments, if that makes sense, but kind of grouping things together into something that's kind of meaningful for them to actually work with to reach people. So hopefully that sums up a little bit, but it's very much about what works for you, I would say.
Thank you.
No problem. I hope that helps. Is there anything else particularly?
There's just one question from Isaac about insights about word of mouth and storytelling.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what you mean. I think if you mean word of mouth as a kind of way of finding out about things.
Shall I clarify that?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think really I'm sort of interested in the principles of storytelling, because obviously storytelling, we all know it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And we also know that word of mouth is very powerful. So I'm kind of wondering if there have been any sort of, if there are any examples of where the two have merged and combined, just really out of interest. And while I asked that question, I actually Googled a few things. And can I post something in the link? It might be of interest.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
So really it was that.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of, if you know any examples of storytelling principles working with word of mouth marketing, etc. But I'll just post this anyway. Thanks.
Okay, not specifically. The thing that immediately springs to mind that is around obviously I'll have a look at that after. That's fantastic. Thank you. It looks really useful. Obviously kind of the ways in which people use social media, it's quite kind of, that principle's quite embedded there. So when you're thinking about social media content, for example, one of the kind of principles about content is, around storytelling, around interesting stories, things that aren't directly, certainly get away from kind of marketing what your organization might be doing, but just provide interesting narrative content or visual content that helps maybe increase shares, likes, that type of thing, and then obviously helps to spread that kind of reach through social media. So if that's the sort of anything I can think of that springs to mind, I'm afraid, but I'm very interested to read this article. It looks interesting.
Thank you.
Great. Is that all the questions? Is that all the questions there? I think so.
I think it is. Yes.
That's
Please
lovely.
Speak up if you think we've missed any of your questions.
Okay, I think well, if there's no more questions, then let's draw things to a close. And thank you so much for joining today. It's been really good to talk to you, and thank you so much as well for engaging in the chat with your comments and questions. It's always really good to have kind of lots of activity going on and interest and follow-up questions and that type of thing. So thank you very much, and I hope it's been interesting.